So this is one, I think there might have been bits of this that got shared in the no clip documentary, but I believe this is the earliest one that I have. They definitely didn't use the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
So immediately you're seeing something that we decided we just could not do, which is to have rooms rotate like that. That just wasn't feasible for so many reasons. And even like what you saw through the door there, just like the smallest place where the floor could rotate. We did do that in one very tiny place in the final map where the floors do rotate, but we had to avoid as much as possible because so many problems happen when you're tilting floors. And again, here, I didn't yet realize that putting this many transformations in one space was just going to be overwhelming. So here to both the player and to us, like we have to make it.
Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah. I was having fun. Look at this crazy shit. Sorry, I need to stop cursing.
Fine.
Yeah, the upside down furniture and the furniture on the walls, that was something that we really wanted to have in the map when you're in behind the scenes, to get that feeling of being somewhere you don't belong there. Like, this is wrong. And we weren't really able to achieve it. Just like there's so much we were already doing, and just technically being able to make the floors tilt and rotate like that was out of scope for the AI, out of scope for the player's collision, out of scope for like how the camera controls. How do you make that experience feel good? And eventually we just had to say, well, no, floors don't tilt. They just go up or down or left and right.
How does the AI deal with the transformations in the final game?
Very carefully. While it's moving, there still has to be a nav mesh under them. So the nav mesh is is this invisible geometry that is glued to every surface that lets the AI know what the ground is. So the nav mesh would be glued to the floor, but we're still not letting the enemies move. So they're going to stop pathfinding, lock them in place. And then when the transformation is finished, I run this big checklist for them to figure out where they are and where they can go. And either they're at a location where there is routes possible and I send them on their way. They try to find their way back to where they were, or they might be stuck. Like there could just be no way out. So then they had a special animation they would play where they were, just looking around confused. I mentioned it in the note clip documentary, and they added a little John Travolta at the bottom. It was cute. That's what we called it. We called it the Travolta animation. So those are some of the early me brainstorming through, and these were done in 2013. So that was me brainstorming through what we could do with transformations. This one is called a Rat Maze 1. So I haven't reviewed all of these actually. I believe this is, yeah. So now you're trapped, and now being dumped. This is to break your fall so you don't die. And now you're thrown into the rat maze.
It's almost like feels a bit like Portal at this point.
Yeah, that is definitely that was definitely something I had in mind when I made it. So as you can see, it just was massive at one point. Oh, look, spikes. So the animations are moving rather too fast in this version. The player doesn't really have a chance to react to what's happening.
So is that something you realized during the prototype, that it needed to be slower?
Yeah. We don't one thing that we always have to do is make sure that this is still fun and fair and playable to someone who doesn't want to play without powers. And there's a ton of reasons behind that. On top of the player can play without powers, that's an option. But just in terms of the one of the like design pillars of the game is you are a supernatural assassin. So the level should never feel like it's built for you. Like everything you're doing is extraordinary. So if the levels are built in a way that looks like this space exists for a supernatural character, then you're kind of breaking the contract of that power fantasy. Now it's become mundane all of a sudden. So that's the two reasons why we always had to avoid making any vignette based around this is for this power. So it's much easier to design a Clockwork Mansion for a player who has blink and bend time, and we expect them to use them constantly, than it is for like, okay, now the player may want to play with no powers at all, and that has to be as valid experience as someone who's constantly using their abilities here.
I've got some Maya scenes I can show you. Yeah, I arrived after the pre-production of Dishonored 2, and I saw what's Dana already done, but we explore some ways with the art direction. So we begin with some ideas to have the access to some room very with no other ways, or systems like we can give access to some rooms, but this kind of stuff doesn't work very well if we are in the player view. So we start to think about the changing volumes of the rooms. So here, if we have a larger view of the changing surfaces of the rooms, we can see from a small corridor at the beginning up. Sorry. We can see that a corridor can become a room, bigger room. And if we continue if we call with the handle another transformation up, we have bigger room. And if we call again another one, we have a bigger room. And every time, yes, we consider from the beginning, as Dana said, behind the walls, with all the mechanism that we can imagine for moving all the mechanics and the transformation. And if we can go around, we can see already this kind of stuff. After that, we have a reflection of the possible movement, because we don't want the transformations look magical. So we have to imagine how real mechanically, how can it work? So here, for example, we can see like in theater, we can see the movement with I don't know the English word for contrepoids.
Counterweight.
Counterweight, okay. Nice.
C'est le même en fait.
Yes, the same. So yes, we have to do a lot of these kind of things. The same reflection for the horizontal move. Yes, we look for a lot of ideas, and after that, the best way we found was the small magnets that we can find in a lot of mechanic, because the magnetism is invisible, and we can imagine with the force of the magnet, you can go search another one, and they can move, they can rotate the one each other. So that's why we can find a lot of them in all the house. So here, yeah, we've got one of the most advanced of the transformation of the entry. So we have the ideas of Dana is we have a small room, and we don't have a lot of choice who's offered to the player. We have an handle, but not a lot of other things. So the idea is to pass from a small room with cold walls, and when the transformation is begin, we can see.
Would you like to speak in French? Would that be easier for you? I can't speak French, but I can translate it later. Would you prefer that?
In French. L'idée première de Dana était qu'on arrive dans une pièce, une toute petite pièce fermée avec peu d'ouverture et d'options pour pouvoir en sortir. Donc, il faut imaginer que là, la porte est aussi fermée à la fin. Et voilà, quand on la manette qui pouvait s'offrir aux joueurs, ça pouvait effectivement ouvrir toute la transformation, actionner toute la transformation. Et là, on passe de murs aux couleurs froides à des murs chauds, et puis le petit espace qu'on avait au départ nous donne accès à quelque chose de beaucoup plus grand et nous ouvre la perspective pour la pièce d'après, pour pouvoir évoluer. Donc là, si je vous montre simplement les parties qui bougent, voilà, on a toutes ces parties-là qui bougent dans la pièce. Alors, c'était pas la version finale, ça a encore bougé après. Mais voilà, on pouvait imaginer quelques meubles fixés sur les plateformes mouvantes. Mais voilà, il fallait prendre en compte le volume qu'elle pouvait prendre pour ne pas ouvrir trop grand, trop d'espace à l'arrière de la pièce. Là, il a fallu imaginer cette plateforme centrale qui bascule à l'inverse des autres. Hop là. Voilà, la plateforme centrale qui bascule et qui évite d'aller chercher trop loin de l'espace à cause de la vitrine. Et voilà, il a imaginé aussi un mécanisme de bras qui puisse emmener la plateforme. Avec, on imagine que les moteurs sont dessous, les bras ici reconstituent tout le mouvement de bascule des plateformes. Donc, voilà. Donc j'ai un petit parcours de mécanicien derrière moi. Et ça m'a aidé un petit peu à imaginer des choses un petit peu crédibles et faisables entre guillemets, si le pouvoir magnétique pouvait fonctionner, on peut se dire que les choses pourraient fonctionner. Ici, par rapport au nombre d'objets qu'on pouvait avoir par rapport à la mécanique, en fait, on s'aperçoit que c'est toujours la même marche, c'est toujours le même objet. Ici, on a la rambarde qui est toujours la même, c'est simplement une histoire d'angle qui fait que voilà, on peut les bouger et ça nous ouvre l'accès à la pièce d'après. Donc là, on arrive dans l'atrium. C'était un petit peu la même idée, c'est qu'on arrivait dans une pièce qui était avec un plafond qui était bas, une pièce qui était un petit peu sombre. Et le fait d'activer la transformation, ça nous ouvrait sur quelque chose de beaucoup plus haut, beaucoup plus lumineux, et on changeait complètement d'atmosphère aussi avec les changements des vitrines, on changeait de décor. Donc voilà, l'idée était de passer de deux atmosphères complètement différentes entre elles. Et voilà ce qu'on peut voir sur les systèmes d'échange des plateformes. De la même manière, si le joueur venait à venir à l'intérieur de ces pièces-là, il fallait que ce soit crédible pour lui aussi, même quand il était derrière les murs. On peut voir ici la transformation sur les trucs. C'était une ancienne version de ce qui fermait les murs à la base. Mais quand c'était ouvert, c'était quelque chose qui fonctionnait pas très bien ici quand on rentrait de ce côté-là. Donc il a fallu imaginer autre chose. C'est pour ça que là, j'ai mis en place un système d'ouverture qui prend et qui donne accès à tout. Donc on retrouve le système de petits pôles magnétiques comme ça qui appellent et qui bougent sur les axes. Voilà. Et puis la même façon, l'ouverture est vraiment c'est vraiment très basique. Au niveau mécanique, petit décalage et puis ça bouge. Mais voilà, on peut imaginer que ça puisse exister en vrai. Dans la pièce du piano et de la harpe, avec l'arc-pylône au centre. Donc ça, c'était une première version avec la plateforme qui bascule. Voilà, je peux vous montrer sans le fixe. Hop.
Oh yeah, we used to have the piano animate too.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
wanted
sure.
to, we never actually managed that.
Hop. Ready to play.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And yeah, we have to. On avait à produire ces choses qui étaient spécifiques, qui n'existaient pas ailleurs. Et puis après discussion avec Dana, on s'était dit que la deuxième version était préférable aussi, puisque en fait, dans cette configuration-là, ça pouvait devenir une plateforme pour les joueurs. Donc c'était plus intéressant que d'avoir quelque chose qui était complètement ouverte, sur lesquelles on ne pouvait pas prendre appui. Donc voilà. Pareil ici, c'est une ancienne version, la première version de l'échange de la table de la salle à manger. Maintenant, on a le snooker. Et donc, on avait double changement. Stock. On avait et d'un côté et de l'autre, avec un bar. C'était bien. Oui, tout à fait. Voilà, donc la table descendait directement dans la cuisine. Donc c'était plus judicieux d'avoir la cuisine d'un côté, la table de l'autre. Et on devait prendre en compte aussi le fait de ne pas jamais coincer, enfin, comme ça a été dit, de jamais coincer ou écraser le joueur dans les transformations. Donc il a fallu imaginer le fait que les murs viennent se ranger dans des endroits où le joueur ne puisse pas aller et qui puisse malgré tout faire les transformations comme on le souhaitait. Hop. Ici, c'était une des premières versions avec la table, la waiting room.
We called this the accordion room, if I remember.
Yes. Parce que nous, en haut, on a des murs qui sont télescopiques, donc il y a des parties qui se rentrent les unes dans les autres. L'idée, c'était d'en faire en bas aussi à la base. Finalement, on a changé d'avis, c'était pas la peine. Ici, il y a différentes idées du pont. Là, on a double planche qui s'entrecroisait.
Hmm.
Je vais un petit peu vite pour.
Yeah. Do you remember why we didn't use this version? Is there some technical reason?
Non, les planches étaient trop lourdes. Elles paraissaient trop lourdes.
Okay. It's too
Et
heavy.
puis, ouais. Et c'est vrai que là, ça paraissait un petit peu lourd. J'avais tout petit peu plus léger, pareil. Ça, c'était l'idée basique. Et je montre le bon. Oui, la même chose, mais en double petite palette.
I know why we couldn't use this one, because you can't dump him if it's animating that way. You need to let Jindash fall to his death here.
Vitally important.
Mhm.
Hop. Alors ici, on avait quelque chose que j'aimais bien au niveau de l'animation, avec des petites lattes autobloquantes.
This looks really nice. It's not as spectacular looking, but it's more practical.
Mais au niveau mémoire, ça faisait beaucoup de petits objets.
Yeah.
Pardon. Il y avait à peu près le même système avec en double. Et ce que je trouvais intéressant avec cette solution, c'est qu'on aurait pu jouer un petit peu comme si on avait voulu exploiter le fait qu'il y ait beaucoup de trous, on aurait pu faire des pièges, ouvrir ou fermer un petit peu comme on voulait. Enfin voilà, c'était des.
I think this is a great example of how we work. We don't just take our first inspiration and run to the finish line with it. We try many different ideas. Even if we're really happy with the one we just did, we'll try again and try again and try again.
Mm.
And you can surprise yourself that way. You just it's doing the same job over and over again, but you never know when you'll stumble across something that was much cooler than what you had originally thought of.
Mm. On a essayé beaucoup de choses, mais voilà. On garde, on essaye de garder, au moins on essaye, on sait que ça plaît pas, on sait que ça plaît, c'est intéressant pour tout le monde. Et donc là, c'est le mouvement final qu'on a gardé. Donc c'est ce qui était intéressant, c'était l'espèce de mouvement de vague qu'on a pu garder. On avait simplement à garder comment s'appelle intégrer les moteurs dessous, etc. C'était pas bien compliqué par rapport à ça. J'ai une version un petit peu plus complexe encore du truc en vidéo avec c'est le même mouvement,
Yeah.
mais avec voilà, des bras mécaniques
Yeah.
armés qui pouvaient se déclencher. Donc voilà, c'était un petit peu la.
Yeah. This was just a little bit too visually intense.
Toujours histoire de coup, et puis ça apportait rien vraiment non plus de plus à l'idée de base. Qu'est-ce que je peux vous montrer maintenant? Là aussi, c'était une partie qui était complexe. Donc là, je me suis bien inspiré des mouvements de montre avec avec un mécanisme central, un moteur et un mouvement qui est décuplé sur tous les différents axes. En fait, il y a un seul moteur qui entraîne tout le reste. Donc c'est le système de verrouillage des plateformes. Donc voilà, ça libère les plateformes, le mouvement peut se faire, l'échange de plateforme peut se faire, et puis une fois que c'est fait, ça reloque le truc. Donc c'est relativement simple dans le mouvement. Le mouvement général de la roue centrale emmène pousse un bras. Ce bras-là pousse deux axes qui, eux, poussent les vérins.
I hope everyone who watches this then runs to the game and triggers this just so they can maybe for the first time actually look down at this floor to see all these just incredibly intricate things that we did. And you do it knowing that a lot of people will just never notice it.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering why was it important for you to make sure everything really did work in a really believable way? A lot of games, a lot of other developers would probably just completely fake all this, and it would just, hope the player doesn't notice. But you really went the extra mile.
I think if we make something realistic, the player, the immersion of the player is better, and he can play even if it's something he haven't seen, or he don't make very big attention on it. It's here, so maybe he can feel it, or maybe not. But if he want to observe, he can see that we make sense a lot of with it.
Even if a player isn't consciously aware of everything that's happening, it all soaks in. I think so much is happening on the periphery of your awareness, but you are aware that something is happening and it feels right because something should be happening there. Even if you're not looking directly at it, you see all these moving pieces, and then it all I feel like it all like feeds little by little the overall feeling. And also we're really excited and really passionate about it, so we constantly were just taking that little extra step to make sure that everything was just right.
Yeah,
There's I can't remember how many different permutations there are. It was like over 100, and I had to just abandon the way I was doing all the other transformations for this one, because you could take like there's 6 different labs and there's 2 different slots. At one point there were 3 different slots.
the
I
beginning,
finished it before we did that simplification, so the work was already done. So I didn't benefit from that simplification. But each one could go into any position in any order. So I developed this, elaborate logic tree that just looked at what was there, slotted in variables, moved them around, and it controlled something like 20 different individual animations per transformation, because you have the mechanism in the central floor, you have the mechanism there on the pillars, you have the mechanism that's inside each of those slabs, and then you have the overall motion of each one as they're going up and down. So it was just ridiculously complicated to pull off, but also very satisfying because it was just a challenge I had never tackled before. And the fun of it was what's the most optimal way of doing this? So I'm not forcing our friend François Delnour, who then has to come in and hand animate all this. I'm not forcing him to animate 50 different animations. He's only going to animate 9 because because the logic is reusing these optimally. So each one of these slabs only has one animation associated with it. So the logic just had to say, okay, who is where right now, and then assign each of like each wedge had this this parent element. It was probably that ball joint that you see, I think, was the parent element, and everything else just you know, it's all done with variables. Okay, this list of empty variables are now filled with what is currently in this position. Now start moving, and everything just moves. This room is also where we started to have fun with hidden rooms. We, for the most part, the mechanisms were either what's happening in the space and what's behind the scenes. But in this case, we started to have little hidden closets. So there's 2 hidden chambers here that are really tricky to get. You have to be really paying attention to how everything is moving and say, like, oh, I see that there's this one room that's only available in this one configuration. What happens if I trigger the transformation and then step in there? Leads you down below, and now you're in a new space. So I didn't get to do nearly as much of that as I wanted, just because you could only do so much. But here's where we finally got to add the little hidden closets in the secret chambers.
I can show you another thing if you want. Is the intention documents. As a level artist, we think about which props, which asset we need, and we have to propose our vision of the thing. We here for it was for the walls of the backstage. We can have something in the root in concrete. Nothing very special. Here, the system of the theater backstage, etc., etc. So
everything has a real reference.
Yeah. And we give this, it's our first ideas. So after that, we give this to the concept team or directly to the environment.
Sorry, I love your black hole reference for just the pure black wall that it vanishes into.
One of the best ideas I've got.
Yes.
And how directly with to the environment artist, and they made the final assets. So here I detailed the systems with mechanical base. So just an example, something's not haven't disappeared.
That piece under it, that's another one of those details that we do it, but who knows who's ever going to see that. But yeah, we had all these different pieces locked together to show that now it's structurally stable. It's not just the movement, it's complete. It's like the physics have to be convincing too.
So we go on internet to find a reference, or we can go to museum, to the bibliothèque, or in our own books.
But sometimes you're referencing just props that have already been made for the game.
Yeah, sure. we
Oh,
can continue the line.
that slide you left was an idea that we had to cut.
This one, yes.
Yeah, this one.
The sliding walls.
It was supposed to help with stealth. You could like pull the lever and the wall would just rotate around the room, so you could hide behind it and get around without the clockwork soldier would be patrolling in the inner circle and you could stay on the outer. Made the stealth a bit easier, but the room was just too heavy in terms of assets, performance, and like the amount of work we had to finish. So you just let go. And so much of the stuff is in the game though.
Yeah, I recognize a lot of it.
The pillars from the small caps. Do not let roll on the.
Those were maddening to animate. There was thousands of them.
The clockwork board has disappeared too.
Yeah, that's a cut asset. That was cut again for technical reasons. Just getting the AI behavior correct with these was just out of scope for the amount of time we had.
What was it originally supposed to do?
So this was the dock that the clockwork sleeps in. When they are deactivated, either they start the level like that, or sometimes they return to them to go to sleep. But and this was how, like, you used to have to hack them with this. So you use the hack tool on the dock while the clockwork is still asleep if you want to change the faction. It got moved to the leg, so we didn't lose that idea. But this had to go because there were just so many behaviors that the clockwork soldier could do. And there just wasn't enough time to make sure that there was a proper segue between being asleep and this behavior that was also compatible with the dock. And there was so many times where they would just get stuck. They couldn't move. So, you're shipping the game. So, well, we can either spend 30 hours of programming time to make sure all of these work, or we can just cut the art. That's I'm repeating myself a lot, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, my stuff I don't think is nearly as interesting to look at as that. I've got some old paper maps, some old flow charts.
Sure, I'd love to see.
I want to take a look at those. Return my screen share. So I believe these are in chronological order. And it'll take a long time to go through these in detail, but just maybe as a glimpse of like how I'm planning things out. So while David is doing all that amazing stuff, I'm drawing flow charts and just, I look at this now and I still see the bones of what we wound up with, even though the order of things is totally different. You enter, there's this first room, there's a transformation. I did a second take on it, and now I don't know why I tilted these. I'm sure it made sense to me at the time. Like, it doesn't mean transforming rooms because all of these are transformations. And so you don't just keep iterating on the same chart. You try different charting methods to help visualize. So this is breaking it down to what are each of these rooms and what am I trying to accomplish in each of these rooms. So you just kind of keep coming up with ideas. Oh, this is the whole section. Yeah. So at one point I was working on the streets district, but it very, very quickly and far too late, we realized that it was just too much for one level designer to do the Clockwork Mansion and the streets. So this was handed over to someone else. But this is dated 2014. So this is still 2 years before we shipped, working out like what is the basic contents for each of these locations. We have the Apollo introduction in the black market shop. there's the rail car with a wall of light vignette. There's the sewer where you start, and there's the upper district with a few like bits and vignettes. There was the checkpoint where you had to do something to let the car proceed. There isn't the gorge anymore. That's something that we lost. But yeah, testing chamber, Sokolov, observatory with Jindosh. This became the lab. Some core ideas just stay consistent across versions. Okay, now I'm starting to get really detailed.
Oh wow, yeah.
And God, what's even all this over here? Yeah, there's no way we can go through all of this. But yeah, I experimented with different ways to visualize it. This version became a bit easier to manage because now I'm looking at, like, this is one room transformation. This is another one. So again, I don't yet have the idea that there's only one transformation per room. That's still that I was still yet to realize that this was not manageable. So this is that other diagram now exploded. So you enter, there's the reception, it transforms into the Jindosh greeting. There's another transformation here, I don't know why. And it starts to branch out. So always thinking about what are the different routes that you can take. Yeah. I'm sure people will want to pause that and look at every single little text. Oh, and now I'm starting to have fun with how I'm doing the art here. Oh, we're getting pretty close to the final design now. Yeah. So here's the entry. Yeah. Again, there's still way too many variations per room. But yeah, this is starting to look like the final version. You go down a corridor, you've got, this is the section with the carousel with different little pieces. And then here's the lab with I called it the final one was called assessment chamber. I called it proving grounds for a while. Sokolov was in a jail cell at this point. We got rid of that idea. And the different, only 2 lab bays. Wow, I was conservative. Turned into 3 and then back to 2. It was right the first time. This is the last one. Oh, this was just like the final version when we finally had it figured out. So you start, there's the vestibule, there's the atrium, the initial transformation, the gallery, here's the bridge, there's the lab. You have these 2 corridors. This is where the guests are in the waiting room, the private area, the carousel's there. You've got that vista in the back, cliffside path lets you get into the dome. Yeah, this was 2014. We finally had the layout figured out. And it was time to get to work. And I'm sure there were also a lot of whiteboard drawings that I don't have in here. So I'm not exclusively like designing in Visio. Sometimes it's in a notebook. Sometimes it's on a whiteboard as a group with other level designers brainstorming through it.
Of course, yeah.
And then return back to my desk and try to work it out like this. I did my own experimentation with the mechanisms too. This is labeled 03. Wait, how did I do the date? Oh no, that's the computer doing the date. When is this from? Details, show me the details. Okay, so this is 2013. Okay, these are all from 2013. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've got a couple like this. So just from the very beginning already planning for the mechanisms being as important to the map as anything else. Of course, mine are super chunky. I don't have that same eye for the mechanical guts that David did. But I was trying my best. All these little gears, things moving around. So in this iteration of the design, the building was a lot more maze-like. So one of these is a lot more cohesive, and maybe I'm looking in the wrong folder. Okay, so there's these symbols on the ground. And the idea was that the place was going to be just an impossible maze. There was no way that you could like navigate it without help. So there was going to be like these panels that you could tell the house, where are you trying to go? Say like, I want to go here. So then the symbols would then light up. So you would do the transformations such that you would get two symbols lit up, and that would tell you that, okay, now you're on the right track. This is the direction to go. I'm glad we did not go in this direction. I think what we went with for like letting the player understand it naturally is better than just saying, the heck with it, it's a maze. The player's going to get lost. We have to have visual, like look at all these buttons. There's buttons everywhere, because each one of those is going to do a very subtle transformation that just changes the layout of the room, or we're going to put you somewhere else. And like the whole place is just a puzzle to work out. How do I get where I'm trying to go? And there was going to be a lot of trial and error involved. So all of that's to say, sometimes you go in a direction, and after working on it for a month or two, realize that it's just the wrong choice. Like I felt good about this, but the more I play it, the more I realize that this isn't fun. This isn't as interesting as I thought it would be. Time to scrap it and start over. Let's see what else we can do.
For the final version, what sort of experience did you really want the player to sort of take away from it?
That even though it's incredibly like I wanted the player to be like wowed by it. I wanted them to feel like this is incredibly new and surprising, but also that it was still inherently knowable. Like you would not feel overwhelmed for long, and you could feel very quickly like this is a space that I can have mastery of, even though this is exceptional. I have worked it out. I know what I'm doing. And now I'm using these transformations deliberately to achieve a goal. So you make the map work for you at some point. So you have your path worked out, you go here, you trigger this transformation, and now it's going to allow for that. You created a special path. You can avoid this group of enemies. You can reach this goal. And it is kind of the opposite of what that early attempt was, which was just, maze-like, and you never like achieving mastery there is not possible because the level is antagonistic towards you. In the final version, the level is part of your tool set at one point.
Excellent. I feel like I've taken up way too much of your time. You've been so generous with all your insights.
It's definitely my pleasure.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, cool. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that I might have missed that either of you would like to add?
I think if there's like any closing thoughts, it has to be that making this map was kind of like the whole team, the whole studio is working on Dishonored 2, but inside that, there's two like almost indie teams working within the bigger team. One of them is working on Crack of the Slab, and they've got their whole deal. They've got stuff that only they have to worry about. And then there was Team Clockwork Mansion, and like we've got our whole deal and stuff only we have to worry about. And the challenge during the whole production is we've got this incredible AI team that is incredibly focused on making the basic experience for the player that is going to exist throughout the entire game. And on top of that, there is me constantly at their desk pestering them to be like, can you please give me this? Can you please give me that? I'm sorry, I also need this. I'm sorry, I also need that. And just like trying to get any of their time whenever they can to do these incredibly unique and specific little pieces that is only going to be used maybe once in the entire game. But if I don't get it, this entire set piece just doesn't come together. and the incredible just patience and generosity of everyone involved to just like David and I were constantly trying to take all those extra steps to bring so much out of that. Everyone else on the team in the sound departments and VFX departments who would like, hey, I'm going to now take that extra step with you to add this extra little detail that will make your work feel just a little bit more special. And some of it just coming in like at the very last minute, like so much of about the way the sound could work in the map was like just is crossing the finish line at the last minute. The way it sounds when the two walls close, up until the very last minute, that would just be a cutoff. Like it's closed and now the sound is gone. There wasn't that natural, like I can't remember what they called it, like an interpolation of like how does the sound feel as that's closing. That's something that came in super late and just was almost a favor, like me asking the audio engineer, can you give me this little extra thing that will just make this that much more credible, and them delivering for it. So it's, yeah, it was like we were making a whole second game on top of the main game through the whole production, and like we couldn't have done it without everybody, basically.